the effect of not planning is incumbent failure. And I hope they watch it. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made a big mistake by saying subsidy is gone during his inaugural speech.
Hello guys, hello people, my people. Wonder shall never end. Ha! Tinubu don't cry out, so no be smarty. Tinubu don't go beg the 36 state governors for Nigeria, all over Nigeria, beg all of them, say make they come, including our own Labour Party, Oti, Sam Oti, right? I pronounce the name well. All of them say make they come, oh, wahala dey, oh, now they wait, which one could be, which wahala dey? Hey, they don't kill this country before they can give you, oh, this one passing hand, don't make all of us pull hand together. This time no be time when we go cut they do. I be PDP, I be APC, I be Labour Party. I beg, we need to come together. If Tinubu don't they cry because Muhammadu Jubri will be father, spoil the country, put her for a hand. And not only that, why they cry? He not prepare for fuel subsidy when he come out. He not prepare put. He just they talk because of the dementia when he get for brain. He just pronounce am, which he not supposed to. Peter be say to say anything go come out, but before he go come out, he go provide for the people first, so that they don't go feed the heat. But this thief Tinubu, this Pada Lord Master, because he get dementia, get memory issue, he call pronounce am. Now he don't they cry, they call the state governor. Rufai don't come outside, don't give Tinubu woto. He don't beat Tinubu black and blue. He don't tell Tinubu say so you don't provide, you can't go they pronounce her. The biggest mistake now for you to pronounce this thing when you do so. You don't put Nigeria for mess and look for a way to fix it. Watch this movie, make you see how this thing get action. Tinubu, you never cry, yo. Emilo Koshena your time. Oh, yeah, fix Nigeria. Thief Tinubu. Watch this video to the end, guys. My name is Benjamin First Lady. I beg for you to wanna put thumbs up, wanna share, and drop your comment in the comment section below. Share this video, okay? Bye.
President Bola Tinubu has directed the National Economic Council, NEC, led by the Vice President Kashim Shettima, to kickstart the process of working on interventions to cushion the impact of subsidy removal on the people. The President also swore in the Secretary to the Government of the Federation, Senator George Akume, making him the first appointee of the Tinubu administration to take the oath of office. State House correspondent Adesuwa Marwa reports.
Shortly thereafter, President Tinubu received the Governors Forum, comprising governors from all 36 states in the country. This marks his initial interaction with sub-national leaders following a separate meeting he had with governors from his political party, the APC. Furthermore, in light of the removal of petrol subsidy and subsequent increase in fuel prices, President Tinubu met with major oil marketers led by the governor of Ogun State. It came to light that the president, during his meeting with the governors, issued directives for the National Economic Council to get to work. He also emphasized the need for collaboration among political leaders to alleviate poverty. The marketers commended his bold actions in ending the subsidy regime and led their cooperation with government interventions aimed at mitigating the effects of subsidy removal.
One thing has to be said that has dogged this administration: poor planning. The best way to plan is to set your priorities right. But the effect of not planning is incumbent failure. And I hope they watch it. President Bola Ahmed Tinubu made a big mistake by saying subsidy is gone during his inaugural speech without planning for it. And now he's trying to plan after making a statement. It is always very hard. And that's what we're seeing play out. Anyway, before I start, I'll say kudos to George Akume that's been sworn in. Also, kudos to the likes of Bajabi Amila, which I think, with his oversight experience in the National Assembly, he should be able to make a dent in the office of the Chief of Staff. And according to historical statistics, we've actually had very strong and powerful Chief of Staff. In fact, they become the de facto president at some points. We all remember the case of the last Chief of Staff before Mr. Gambari. So they've held sway. We all can also wish him well and say he should serve without partisanship and try as much as possible to aid the president in achieving his goals, ambitions, and aspirations. Coming back to poor planning, it is the poor planning that now makes us scamper around for solutions. I think the palliative should have been thought out in the first place. This medicine after death, mark my words, will not give you veritable palliative for the people. what will just happen is that in the end, Nigerians will just have to move on and get used to it, while more people get poorer and the economic conditions dwindle even further. In fact, it has started. The same filling stations that were excited about subsidy removal, now they're not getting people to buy enough fuel from those filling stations. Yeah, we are seeing the gains. There are protests in Cameroon now because their prices have increased. Yes, that's to show that most of our oil was taken away through the border to go sold, and they were selling them for cheap in Cameroon. But internally, the economy will shrink a little bit as a result of this. And it's when the numbers come out. KPMG has already projected about 31% inflation. That could even be more. So part of the poor planning is now what we're seeing, the minimum wage, 200,000. I'm very sure that the government will not accept 200,000 minimum wage. I'm very sure. They will have to meet halfway with Labour at some point. But I'm very sure, because it's not possible in the first place. The government that doesn't make a lot of revenue, with the Nigerian revenue, government revenue just increased all overnight to be able to pay 200,000 for 720,000 members of staff of the federal government on the eyepiece, minus states. How many states are even paying 18,000 minimum wage in the first place, or 30,000? Probably in the end, some states will just increase, and they will use the method of allowing some of their workers to work 3 days a week to be able to cushion the effect, so that other days they will not have to pay for transportation. And then those states, kudos to them, have led the way. They're saying 3-day working week. I think they bumped up the money to 40,000 minimum wage. In the end, because we failed to plan, Nigerians will just get used to the suffering. And you know the thing about Nigerians, you push them to the wall, they enter the wall and keep moving. So they will get used to it, the economy will shrink. Hopefully, I think the real palliative will be economic growth, to be able to buffer the effects. But the question the government should ask is, where is the growth going to come from? Probably CNG buses. This is my calculation. If we get a lot more buses into the production line produced by Nigerian companies, you can get to increase people that are working in the automotive sector. If we make that the order of the day. Yes, Dr. Bati, you are right. We lack institutional memory. It's never worked in the past and all of that. But if we can get private motor operators to buy CNG, but because the problem, and why it's almost not possible any palliative government puts in transportation, is that government doesn't control the transportation value chain. Except for the Lagos state government that has, BRT buses and the likes. Most other state governments do not. The transport companies don't ever work. Remember the TCTC of those years of Oyo State. It never worked. And in the end, those buses are ill-managed. But if we make CNG and diesel an alternative, and a lot of these bus owners, luxurious bus owners and the likes, buy these buses, then we can start to grow an automotive sector in Nigeria. If automotive sector growth comes into the economy, it can have some percentage point of growth. And when that happens, people can produce jobs. And economic growth can start to knock out the effects of this hardship that we're going through. So I think the target the government should target now is the economic growth, because that's the only true palliative I see. Any other thing, even an increase in minimum wage, will not go one step further. Because if you increase minimum wage by, say, 30-40%, the over 200% in crude oil price, in petrol price increase will nullify any minimum wage you bring out, owing to the fact that there are other inflationary factors like food inflation and core inflation before now. So it's almost impossible. I think what we should target now will be the long-term economic growth that will be able to placate the economy, cool down the economy, and if as we go on and we grow, we can reduce inflation numbers and ensure that there's more food for people and stop insecurity so that farmers can bring their food out and build infrastructure around food distribution network in the country, then I think that should be the true palliative. Because if that happens, food prices can fall, and when food prices fall, a lot can be better. The Yorubas have a saying, and I'm very targeted about food prices. The Yorubas have a saying, "But baby batonu ishe bushe." What it means is that when you take food out of poverty, poverty starts to reduce. So that's the true palliative. And not all of this we are saying, but all of this is because we have not planned. This is what we ought to have talked about before removing the subsidy in the first place. So hopefully, I pray the economy grows, we stabilize things, and the country becomes better for it. The Senate has passed